congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was pretty special. So I've just seen it, so it's very fresh, but yet I feel like I could watch 5 more times. How many times have you watched it by this point?
Boy, over the last 3 years?
It's a little more than 5.
Yeah.
A little more than 5 times.
Yeah.
Would you estimate?
I would say just within the last few weeks, we probably, because we've had to see it in different versions. We had to see the final mix. We had to see it in stereo. We had to see it with EDR, which is like this amazing new, technology. So everything, sitting through the whole thing, probably at least 6 or 7 times in the last
few weeks.
Couple weeks.
Yeah. But the part, you've seen it for 4.5 years, because that's this journey that we've been waiting for, and it's finally over for everyone, and they're seeing the film, and here it is in front of us. Chris, congratulations, because this has been, the story has been trying to get out there since the 1930s, I think, at Disney, right?
Yeah.
And your version not only made it, but then helped by your giant team that's so talented, has now the first animated musical sequel.
Yes.
Amazing.
I know. It is. I'd have time to really sort of sit back and think about it all. It's overwhelming when you do. I just got a text today from my son. He's in New York and he's connected with musical theater, but he had Patty Murin, who plays Anna on Broadway. It was not her last day, but she was sort of sending off the Frozen tour cast. And she was emotional and all this, and he just wrote, "Look all the lives that you've affected." And I said, it's overwhelming, but it's in a great way. And as an artist, you want to do something that says something to people, that touches them, that makes them laugh, does whatever, but reaches out and affects them. And there's nothing I could have imagined for this. I could never have imagined this one would be as powerful as it has been.
And that's the thing is when you both, and speaking to Jennifer, saying, when the first was done, there was about a year, and then you both sat there, everybody sat there and said, no, we missed them. It's time. It's time to dive back in. I think we can do it. What is the first question that you wanted to answer for everybody? What is that you knew had to be a part of this film?
Well, Peter, you can talk to that, because you were traveling the world and
I did get to travel the world with students and artists, and I kept hearing the same question over and over again. Everyone wanted to know, where did Elsa get her powers? And when I came back, it turned out Chris and Jen were sort of asking themselves that same question, because they had just been working on the short, and I think fell in love with seeing the characters come alive again in animation. These characters are real to us, and I think that was sort of the genesis of I think there's more story to tell.
Yeah. Because that was just kind of ambiguous. Like, well, she got powers.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and in the first one, we were okay with not really answering it. It was like, well, it's okay. We don't necessarily need to answer it for that story, for the first part of it. But in this one, it just felt like you just wanted to dig deeper, and she wanted to know. I think that's what's fascinating about it. Elsa really wanted to know, why do I have, where do they come from, but why do I have them? And I think that's a question that everybody can relate, especially young adults, but we looked at Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, and really all of them sort of as, in their early 20s, just sort of having graduated college, and the world is wide open for them now. But what are they going to do with it? Where do they go? Where is their path going to take them? And what do they have to give the world? And I think that was another powerful thing for all of them to find out, and that's what we got excited about that journey, and and then just seeing where that would take us.
And I will say that time in my life, and I always tell people, I find that time to be one of the most difficult points in my life, and I think it is for a lot of people.
I think we can all remember it, and we also happen to have our own children who are varying stages of college, some graduating college, and so it was very relevant to us as well.
Yeah, and at the time, yours were just starting college, right?
Yes.
When we started on this movie, and now
it's ironic to think that my kids started college and finished college before we could finish the movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of timelines, that's kind of your gig, right,
Sure.
Peter? So
Yes.
you've got to keep it. how much do you count on them saying, no, we really do need this much more time? I mean, how much do you push, and what is...
Well, the overall schedule, we have a release date when we start, so we know there is a point that we have to finish the movie. And I think we work as partners. We're all on the same team. We all want the same goal, to get the best movie we can up on the screen. We know we have limited time, limited resource, but we also have an amazing crew who's very talented at what they can do. And really, they surprise us in what they can bring to the movie. Yes, we have discussions, but it's always about finding that compromise.
You never have to do a tough, meeting with us. It's usually just like, guys, we really need to hit this certain mark, and we got it. I mean, we know.
So it doesn't get to that point.
I would say there's nothing, I think, that we feel we didn't get up on the screen.
No.
Really, the
There's
movie we wanted
left.
to make is up there.
I was going to say, is there anything that was cut from original Frozen? Is there anything that you kind of...
In the second movie that we cut from the movie?
From original Frozen, where it was
that
like...
made it into two?
Yeah. Is there something, or a character? Because there are a lot of new characters.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. Okay. Not really. I mean, when we started to... I don't think we had really started to explore Elsa's connection to nature... or even thought about that yet. Right. I mean, besides her ice and snow powers, but not the characters that now we have. All the other,
all these characters.
I mean, like the first movie, there were many versions of this movie along the way, and many sequences or songs that, at one point were relevant, and then as the story evolved and changed, they had to change as well.
Do you have any of those that just you're holding on to? Like, man, that was my favorite. Or because everybody, that's the thing about collaboration. It's not going to be all one happy family. Everybody's going to agree all the time. Is there something?
We had a really fun song for Christoph and Anna that that people will hear because it'll be available for them to hear it. And I did love that song. It just didn't quite. I got to get this right.
Okay.
And it's Christoph talking about he wants to propose to Anna, but he wants to do it in the right way.
Yeah, which we get that in the film for sure.
Yeah, and this, but it was. What happened, I think, was that storyline became a little almost too big, and then we had them break up at one point.
Oh,
and it was it was almost a little too sad.
Well, she does seem every time she's got that insecure, like, wait. Not with me. You don't want to be, which is such a common feeling for a lot of relationships when you're unsure.
Right. Yeah. Right. And we, it's interesting. Anytime we would veer away from Anna and Elsa as the main story, it just didn't feel right. And when Christoph and Anna became almost a main story and wasn't a supporting story, it just you felt like what's. It's great. It's interesting, but it's like, what's happening with Anna and Elsa now? And you always wanted to go back to their relationship. So it was one of those things. It just took over, and we had to cut it.
So can we talk about some of the new characters? Just, I mean, we're the impetus for, say, the fire salamander. Where does this?
So
I was surprised with the fire part. I had seen like an image of the salamander, maybe, or no?
We've tried to keep that pre-release of the film somewhat secret. So yes, the salamander's gotten out. Obviously, when we previewed the movie, I don't think we realized how popular that character could be. Yeah. So we actually went back into the movie and kind of added him in additional sequences. But it came about as it was one of the four elements. When we first started the movie, we had just anticipated the one element, gale, wind. But the more the story developed, the more it felt like we needed all four, earth, wind, and he represents fire in the movie. And that came from Scandinavian folklore where people bring in wood that's been stored outside. They bring it in the fire. When they light the fire, sometimes salamanders have hidden in the wood and they come running out. So they got associated with fire. And so it made sense to us to incorporate him as the fire element.
But yet the cutest fire element
Yes.
in the world, right? You cannot get cuter. And I think it's almost like you're kind of opening a bit of an Olaf door a little bit, where you have this, I mean, he's not speaking and saying ridiculous things, but you have that cuteness and lovable, like, we needed even more of that. Speaking of Olaf and the comedy, because there's a lot, and I really did love so many of the scenes with him. Who is the comedian? Who's the most driver of the Olaf, brand, would you say?
Well, it's no question. It's Josh Gad.
Well, Josh. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, I'd say, because Josh, she was telling me that Josh, especially in that Frozen recap, was ad-libbing a lot of that, which is fascinating. But I'm saying some of it is written prior.
Well,
that's
Jen, our screenwriter.
Jen.
but-
it is Jen. She's the comedian of the group, though.
Well, I
you'd
think
say?
she works really well in collaboration with the actor. I mean, really, we found on the first film, I think she found the voice of Olaf by meeting Josh Gad and really working in the studio. And
she had seen a test that the animators had done, and it was Josh on the Tonight Show, I think, and they just used a clip of that, but with Olaf talking, and she just went, "Oh, he has to be the one." And we had already wanted Josh, and for some reason, he was going to go off and do another project, but luckily we got him back, and then the very first scene that we did with him, when you meet Olaf in the first film, we just worked it, and we just kept playing it, and he kept playing, and we found Olaf in the room there. The thing that I had, come up with Olaf in an earlier version before Jen was even there, and Olaf was originally when Elsa was a villain. He was one of her guards, and so Marshmallow, the big snowman, was going to be. There were going to be lots of marshmallows, so he was one of them. But we thought that Elsa's power is just an entertaining thing, was that she's still learning, and she hadn't quite gotten it yet. So Olaf was the very first guard that she made, and he looked like he did, and so we called Olaf like the first pancake.
Okay.
The first pancake is a little burned on the bottom that you throw away. So it was like, so there's Olaf. So Olaf started like that. He was kind of he was fun. He was a little annoying, but he was. I knew, as an animator, so I started as an animator. I knew that he was animation gold. As a character that falls apart, can put himself back together. That's just total entertainment there. So I knew visually he could be amazing. But then as we talked, it was like, how do we make him not just a sidekick? And Jen was the one that worked really hard. And she's, about connecting Olaf to Anna and Elsa. So we didn't even have, Olaf was just with Elsa for the longest time. And then when she said, well, what if Anna and Elsa make a snowman at the beginning of the movie? He doesn't come to life yet, but it's the beginning of Olaf. So what Olaf represents throughout the first film, and the second one too, is that it represents their innocent love together and the good times that they had together. So that when Olaf is with Anna for some of the movie, in the first one, you're still reminded of that. And there's a connection, there's an emotional connection to Elsa. So he's not just a sidekick. So
actually, Olaf is the bridge between the bridge, right? I mean, actually, kind of.
He is. You're right. Yeah, he is.
Now we know where he is. He's the main character. Got it. So I think that as I'm thinking of their hands going together, and I'm thinking of two people, and I know that's many more people, but when this started and you brought Jen Lee on, and you two had a relationship that now has evolved much like Anna and Elsa's, I would imagine. What can you tell us about that has changed or
Let's see.
Good, bad.
Jen has now become the queen, and I'm off. I'm off riding towards the glacier.
Yeah.
We just have all three of us. We have a great collaboration. We don't. We support each other. We rarely argue, and usually it's just kind of disagreements. And you put it well. Whenever we
I think
disagree,
what I love about when we disagree, usually it leads to a third idea that's even better. So that kind of disagreement's not arguing; it's just that creative differences. But again, it always seems to lead to something better.
But we're very yin and yang. Jen is usually, she's the first one to react to something if something is pitched. And she's like, and I'm going, what about? So I
process.
Yeah, I process.
Yeah.
I process. And so, and she, a lot of times, you know, she'll be doing this and this and this, and I'm saying like this, and then she'll turn and she goes, okay, what do you think? I mean, it's like, come on, spit it out. And then I can do it. So we work well in that way. And I'm always of the mind, I've worked with a lot of other directors, and I'm always of the mind of if someone is passionate about an idea, even though I might not agree with it, I say go for it. Go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But usually it does, because they're so passionate about it, they usually make it work.
Yeah.
And so I'm always of that mind of trying that as opposed to shutting anybody down and saying, I don't think that's going to work.
Like the law of improv. You got to do
exactly.
yes.
Yeah. So
I do remember when we said, hey, I think Jen would be a good partner on the movies as a writer, sitting on the edge of her desk asking her if she'd consider writing Frozen. She said, oh, I don't know, and I don't know if I can write a musical. And we said, well, just come to an offsite with us. And I think by the end of that 2 days, she said, I can do this. And I think the reason we were attracted to her is she had the same vision for the film that I think Chris had.
Because I had earlier versions of it when I was directing on my own. In the core of it, at least what I saw it could be, it wasn't there yet, was what Jen connected with. And so we all sort of had the same vision. So that helped. And we had an ending very early on that in the first film that stuck. And actually in the second one we had our ending too. We knew that we wanted Anna to be queen and we wanted Elsa to basically be free. Yeah. And that just felt right. And we do these, I don't know if Jen talked about it or not, but we did these, we call tone reels. And early on, we just, like 3 years ago, it was just cutting together clips from a bunch of different movies and stuff just to sort of get a flavor of what their path could be or their journey could be. And Anna's, she ended up queen. We used all these things. And Elsa ended up being kind of this larger-than-life spirit, this sort of protector. And so it was interesting. And we also did psychological personality profiles on them. And Anna turned out to be the leader, and Elsa turned out to be the protector. So we followed kind of that and let Anna and Elsa let their personalities sort of lead us to what would be true for an ending for them.
Now, when you're watching and you see, something, because I know you see bits at a time, but when you see some sort of chunk together, maybe an act together, and do you remember one of the first things that the animators surprised you with or did better than you could have thought?
Oh my God, that happened almost every daily.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the level of animation, the level of creativity. I mean, we come up, obviously, in the story room, but what they bring to it is huge.
Like, give me an example of one of the moments, if you can, that stands out or did stand out on that day. Well,
it's different. It's different things. So with, the more emotional things, so Olaf dying.
Yeah.
We knew, obviously, it was going to be a very emotional scene.
Who decided Olaf was going to die? That's not nice.
that came up in a very, very
he doesn't die.
No, he comes back.
He disappears for a time.
He disappears.
Yeah.
He goes off stage.
That came up early off-site discussion, and I got chills. And Jen said, "You've got chills with that, don't you?" And somehow it stuck. And
we knew that it was a very powerful moment.
Yeah.
It could be a very powerful moment, and what that would mean for Anna and Elsa. But it was all about, or having to earn it, of course, and why would that happen? And but when we realized, well, if something's happening to Elsa, and they're so connected, then something would happen to Olaf. We had an earlier version where Olaf was actually feeling everything Elsa felt. He could almost read her mind. And we had that throughout. So, and this was still in there as like by the time that Elsa was going to freeze, that Olaf, disappears and flurries away too. We felt like we didn't need it as much, so we kind of stripped that away earlier.
But you got a little bit of that feeling is that he's saying, I don't think she's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and that was
implied.
later on, but we had it all like from the
throughout.
beginning of the movie.
Got it. Okay.
That he was like connected to her, and so we felt like we didn't need it as much, and so that was a when it comes to the animation and being surprised by it, we saw that scene. It's a very long scene, very emotional, and Jen and I just went, okay, this is phenomenal. I don't want to see it again. I mean, I don't, because usually we watch them over and over and over, and we give notes, and we just went, that's phenomenal.
Leave it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and every time we would see it in different iterations, we'd see it with effects, with all the flurries, and it would just get more emotional. Then we see it with final lighting, same thing. And I honestly said, that's good. It's great.
What's
Enough.
the one that you gave the most notes on, each of you? Or changed the most?
Gave the most notes on.
I mean, the most interactive, but not so much for notes, was the whole development of the water knock and what that's going to look like, and all the different departments working together. That wasn't really notes. It was that collaborative effort between animation effects and lighting and their visual development partners, and that was a big challenge. So
that and the wind too.
yeah,
The win.
We did an early test sequence of the wind, and it's great. But it was still trying to figure out the personality of the wind and how do you give wind personality. And so the animators, they rose to the occasion with that one, but it was a real collaboration between character animators and effects animators. So the character animators would do more just using a ball to give you the timing of the wind.
Right.
With sometimes just this ball running around and it gives you a character right there. And then the effects guys would come in and add leaves to it, or snow, or whatever Gale was made of at the time. And that was a real kind of trick. There were a lot of notes because they were just back and forth. And like Peter said, also the knock, the water horse. There's a lot of back and forth between character and effects. So we were involved with that. So
I would say creatively, Show Yourself was probably... we knew it was a very important moment in the movie, but what that song should be, and working with Bobby and Kristen, who are great collaborators, but finding the version of that worked. I think Mark Smith probably boarded that, 20 times. They wrote and rewrote the song many times, and I think it wasn't until someone, I can't even remember who, came up with the idea of integrating the lullaby into the end of that and bringing the mother in. That's what really made it resonate.
Because we originally were thinking, well, what if we do a Let It Go reprise in there? And we did, and they tried it. It was very emotional. But there was still something missing, and it was connecting the mom to that moment that finally, with her lullaby, that's when it really we just went, oh, this is incredible. So, but it was a tough one, and I'll be honest, it was a tough one. There were times that I just went, I don't know if this is going to work. There were moments, some versions I went, it's awesome, and sometimes it would get broken again, and you go, oh, what's happening? So that was a real bear of a sequence to do.
Did y'all always know that you'd have her kind of scoff at the Frozen her saying "Let It Go"?
No,
that was added.
That was later when she brings all the memories down. That was we actually just went through and did like a little gag pass. It's like, what would be fun for the audience to memories of that. And we had always, so there's the Let It Go moment, but then there was always talked about how can we get Hans in the movie
right.
without it feeling like really weird that he's showing up for some reason.
Because you kind of want to know.
Yeah, I know. And so that was at least our nod to it. It's like, and then, for her to be able to sort of disintegrate him, it's like very satisfying.
When I listen to you guys talk, and I've been writing a bit and writing children's and then writing adult books, and I'm thinking of just telling stories, but I wonder, everyone's talking about not writing linearly. I mean, pretty much, where you just have it feels, even as we're speaking, kind of messy. How do you keep this train rolling? How does it somehow suddenly become this magical Frozen 2?
We talk about believe in the process because while you're in it, it's very hard to see how you're going to get to the end.
Yeah.
I think the idea of we generally get the movie up, sometimes just in the beginning, just a story sketch, so we hire the actors, and about every 3 months we screen it for ourselves, but also all the other writers and directors at the studio who aren't on the project to help give us notes. And those sessions can be
It's
brutal.
painful.
Yeah, okay.
But we basically then rip it apart and rebuild it.
Yes.
And then slowly but surely there are pieces that we have to put in production. And so we all hold hands up. No matter how the story changes, we know this part's going to be in the movie. So they start in production with that. And we can still be changing the rest of it. And then it's a slow process to get to the
And a lot of times the songs are the easiest ones to go into production first, just because it's usually this is a solid 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Right.
And it's all there. So you have to make this work. It's not like, well, if we just add another 30 seconds here or do this or that. So those are usually the ones that we try to
I think Anna's song was one of the first, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Because we knew one way or another that was an important moment in the movie.
We call them our tentpole sequences.
Okay.
And those are the ones that will...
And that
we
kind of
can use.
leads the place, because I think that's what I, even just thinking creatively, that could be a struggle. If you were speaking to someone who wanted to become a storyteller, would you encourage this sort of madness? Or
Yeah, I mean, we, when Jen will write a whole script.
Oh, yeah.
So it is linear in that part.
Yeah.
But the way we work, I don't think you can work linearly.
You can't.
I mean, as you said, both movies, we knew the ending. We just didn't know how to get there, how to earn that ending.
We hadn't earned it. You have your characters and you have the ending, and then you have moments along the way that you go, this would be really cool. This would be cool. How can we make, or really emotional, how can we make this work?
And even stopping yourself, editing yourself, right? Because I'm sure there's a certain point where you're like, we can't keep changing this. But if it's that good of an idea,
Yeah. And a lot of really great ideas will resurface. Ones that you threw out a year ago, suddenly the story has changed again, and you're like, what about that? And it comes back in a different form, and you're like, oh my gosh, it was there all the time.
Is this part of the success? I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of evolution of how Disney animation has worked, but would you say this is part of the success of what Frozen meant to the world? Or do you think it's different the way it's put together that way?
I think certainly in our recent films, I'm talking from Tangled On, this idea of we're all responsible for each other's films at the studio, whether we're working on it or not, I think has made a big difference. And like you said, sometimes hearing the critique is hard to take, and it's the solution that is presented in the room isn't always the right solution, but if people are all giving you notes around the same area, you know there's a problem to solve, and so you work the problem in the room and come up with a solution that's right for the movie.
Because we always say, well, what's the note behind the note? Because we may not want to follow that exact note that someone gave, but what is the issue there? So.
Yeah. Now, I asked, and I will ask everyone, but is there an Easter egg you can just give us right now? Within the film.
Oh, at this point, yeah. There, where you've got Elsa at the beginning, as with Elsa and Anna as young girls, Elsa has made these little snow sculptures, and she is playing with Dumbo.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a Baymax from Big Hero 6, and he's standing right there, right next to them.
There's so much to look at. That's the thing, is I think you do end up needing to see.
Yeah.
So look hard in that part, right?
Yeah, you don't have to look too hard.
Because Dumbo now
she brings up Dumbo. She's actually holding Dumbo.
Yeah, you're right. And she says, "What sound does an elephant or a giraffe make?"
Yeah, she does to do a giraffe. Yeah,
so which is a great question. I did. It's all coming back to me now. I feel like I have a terrible memory too, and I think this is people listening to this may be saying. And I'm sure you're asking half the time, like, how did I get here? But truly, how do you get here? How if someone is just dreaming right now and they're dreaming of working in Disney or working in animation or working in storytelling, how do they do this?
Well, I mean, for me, it was a dream. I drew all my childhood. I loved drawing, and I loved watching Disney cartoons. I grew up on that. When I was younger, didn't have the access to all the cartoons, or every once in a while on the every once in a while on the Wonderful World of Disney, there would be a little bit of animation, but the films only came out like every few years, the animated films, and so when they did come, it was very, very special. I fell in love with Pinocchio. I think it was the first movie I ever saw, and I keep going back to that as maybe the moment that I went, I'd really love to do this someday. And I didn't even understand what animation was, but I just, I love those characters. then just drawing, and finally, finding the school, Cal Arts, which is just about 30 minutes away from here, and they had just started a character animation program, and we were the second year that was there, and I had besides Mike Jamo, who's our incredible production designer on this movie, in my class there, Tim Burton was in my class, and so we all kind of grew up together, and luckily with our student films, we got into Disney and started with the training program.
So no people like Tim Burton. Be friends, be as talented as... Great. It's Chris Buck and
no Tim Burton.
Yeah.
No. It's just, I think it's just the passion, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get to the place that we are. Nothing was handed to us. And, but it is, you have to have the passion. Animation can be a long process, 3-4 years for a film. So it takes patience. But it does, it just takes persistence and patience and luck, I guess.
I think at the studio, obviously we get to work with some of the best artists, some of the best technicians, but all of them feel proud to be here and feel the legacy that came before, and it's sort of an honor to be here, and you're reminded every day what a creative process this is. And so I think passion is a big part of it, but that passion feeds on itself in this environment, and it's as hard as it is, we are very lucky to be working here.
Now you, and I would say that people are lucky to work with you all, and that's why you've risen and keep rising. And Peter, congratulations, right, as of late,
yes.
Even. When you think about Disney and Disney animation, maybe specifically, but Disney in general, is there something that you just know you have yet to do as far as what's next? I'm sure you don't want to talk about what's next when it's, we've just come off of a giant project like this.
Sure. I mean, certainly keep challenging ourselves to tell great stories and stories that resonate around the world, surprise ourselves, challenge ourselves. I think each project feels like a lifetime. We measure our lives in terms of which movie were we making when our children were born or whatever. Yeah.
People will talk about a lull pre-Tangled or something, but there are still great films, Tarzan, for example, but there's still great films. There will always be. Do you think that you have to have lulls to have the Frozen highs?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess
because you can't just be Frozen every day.
No, I mean, certainly there are many great films that we've worked on and have made, including Frozen. That I think the big change for us was it once again became a filmmaker-driven studio where the filmmakers decide, do they have a passion to tell a story, and it comes from within rather than getting scripts, soliciting scripts and getting from the outside. It comes from the filmmakers, and I think that has made a big change for us in recent history.
What is the song in this film that you can't get out of your head, that you go home singing?
Oh dear.
When Bobby and Kristen deliver a song, I think we all play the songs in our cars and we sing them and we can't get them out of our head. And then they deliver a new song and the same thing happens all over again. I will say right now the crew is singing the songs in the studio, which is the same thing that happened on the first movie. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. Which one, though? Do you feel like there's one for you
going
specifically?
And going.
Yeah.
It's funny. I find myself singing, a lot of them separately. I'll sing them at home. My wife is because I haven't told anything about the movie to my wife because she said I don't want to know. I just want to see it when it's finished.
Wow.
Well, part of it is
That's
because
strength.
If I come home with a story that's working one day,
and then it'll change anyway. Yeah.
I'll say the next day we change the whole thing. And she goes, "What are you guys doing? You don't know what you're doing." So I will sing some of the songs around the house. She doesn't know what I'm singing, but Into the Unknown is so catchy, and that is just it's so powerful too. I really, really do love that, and I love we're gonna have two versions now. We got Adina's version, which is just killer, and then we got Panic at the Disco's version, which is so amazing too. So, yeah, I've got these two versions in my head.
In your head.
It starts the journey. It's visually, it's stunning. It actually means a lot to us. I think we realize in hindsight. Into the Unknown is a little bit of how do you make a sequel to Frozen. That feels a little bit of us going into the unknown. So.
It's very personal.
So I will end the same way I'll end every interview because I think it's perfect. And at D23, when they couldn't speak to me about really anything at all, Josh kept leaning over Kristen's shoulder and saying, "Because we're doing Frozen 3." And I mean, 6 times in the interview. Obviously, he was just joking, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a Frozen 3?
We feel like Frozen 1 and Frozen 2 tells one complete story. Although at the time we did Frozen 1, we felt that was a complete story. So.
We always, now we joke, it's like, ask us in a year.
Right.
Because that's what it took after the first one to go, there's more story to tell.
But is this now it's kind of opened or broken a dam as we decided into maybe something else for the future? Because I think a lot of the stories that we love, Tangled being one in my house that you go, and then somebody said to me, well, she cut her hair. So that can't have another one. It's like, wait, but there could be more story. There could be, if there was one Disney film, whether it be Pinocchio, anything, what do you think also deserves a sequel?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, gee.
That is so hard because all our films always feel like they're crafted to be a complete story. So.
But a favorite that maybe you say, I would have really loved to see more of this one,
Boy.
Not that, we're not holding you to it. You don't have to make it.
Yeah, Peter, you have the power to get another one done.
It's just so hard because I'm rattling through all the movies in my head and it's hard to pick a favorite. It's like picking a favorite child.
I know, but even if just the first one comes, because obviously we all have our favorite children.
Okay, I
Frozen
would say
3.
one. Frozen 3.
Frozen 3.
I will say one.
Yeah.
I love this movie. I always loved it as a kid, and I think you could. I think they probably did one, a direct-to-video, but, it may not have been as good as it could have been, and I would say Jungle Book.
Jungle Book, yeah.
There's something about, he goes to the man village at the very end,
right.
but it's like, but he's still a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what is happening in that jungle and those, I love all those animals there, and there could be more animals and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
More great songs.
Okay.
So.
Peter, pick.
Oh my God. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe, no, I don't know. Sorry.
All right. We'll let that one go. My producer, Samantha, she is the biggest Disney aficionado. And she wrote almost like a thank you that in the notes that she prepared for me and things. She said, because how much Frozen meant to her. And this is, you've heard, around the world after making the first one. Mm-hmm. Why did this one resonate that much? And what is the Frozen effect?
I mean, when movie first came, I think we knew we had a good movie, but nobody could have anticipated sort of the phenomena became or how much the movie would mean to people. And I think we were also, YouTube had sort of just come into its own. So it was the first film that we had worked on where we got to see audience reaction. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty amazing feeling. And even since then, a lot of people have come up to us.
It's kind of amazing that it still is there. Mm-hmm. People love that movie. Those characters mean so much to them. When we first, I think where was it? It was in the spring of 2014, and we were doing Reddit. Ask us anything. And someone wrote in saying that because of the film and because of Elsa's journey, how much that meant to her, and she said she was having a tough time in her life, and she says, I'm still here on this planet because of Elsa and because of your movie. And we just went, oh my gosh. I mean, and starting to feel the power of that and what these films can do for people. There were stories of children, autistic children, that were connecting with Olaf and were talking, starting to talk and communicate with their parents because of Olaf. And there was just one after another. We met people at D23, these two women who somehow connected online, and they didn't have sisters, and they found each other, and now they consider each other sisters, and they're from 2 different countries. And they came dressed up as Anna and Elsa.
And even people who are sisters, who somehow the movie reunited them, and they brought their sister they hadn't talked with a long time to see the movie, and that was emotional to them and reconnected them. And I mean, it goes on. We've had men who one gentleman who was in the Iraq War and lost some limbs, and there was something about Let It Go that made him realize he needed to put that part behind him and sort of accept who he was. And so again, on so many levels, it's touching.
Well, it touched us. We're very happy to have you talk about it. I could talk to you for hours, but thank you. I won't take your entire evening. I know you've finished a film and you need to get some rest.
Well, thank you.
Oh, there's no rest for us.
I was
Not for
say,
a while.
On to the next one. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Inside Frozen 2. A behind-the-scenes look at the making of Frozen 2 from ABC and Disney. Listen now for free on your favorite podcast app and see Frozen 2 in theaters now and Frozen on Disney+.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.